This graph is meant to help us understand the types of crimes that individuals are more or less likely to commit at different years of age. So the light blue is reflecting youth between ages 12 to 17. The darker blue is reflecting young adults between ages 18 to 24. And the red is reflecting all adults that are age 25 and over. And what you can see here is that youth are especially overrepresented when it comes to committing property crimes. So the crime rate for property crimes is higher for youth compared to adults, but not only look at violent offenses when we're comparing youth to young adults. Young adults are disproportionately responsible for violent crime. This kind of goes against the idea that youth are the more violent individuals, the ones that we need to watch out for because they're more dangerous. What I think is cool or interesting is if you flip this graph around and look at it vertically instead of horizontally, you can actually see for each offense type something that really looks like the age crime curve, that reiterates that at the aggregate level we tend to see across these different crime types an age crime curve effect. What's interesting about this graph is it has some pretty important policy implications for how we would go about preventing youth crime. We can see that for youth, crime tends to peak in the late afternoon. So when they're let out of school, but before maybe their parents are home from work. It reiterates that maybe we need after school programs or things for youth to do. One of the biggest dangers is unstructured free time. They don't have anything in particular to do. This might lead to boredom, which might lead to involvement in criminal offenses. So when thinking about trying to reduce youth crime, we want to think about what are youth doing between the hours of like 2 and 5 p.m. and what can we do to fill up that time, thinking about Hershey's idea of involvement. They'll be so involved in other pro-social activities, they won't actually have time to go out and commit crime. Here's another really interesting slide that's showing the percent of instances in which a particular crime type had a co-offender based on the age of the individual perpetrating the offense. We can see that youth, regardless of crime type, were much more likely to have a co-offender compared to young adults and compared to adults. So what does this mean for crime rates? I think this is really important from like a stats nerd perspective. We can begin to see that, okay, if a crime rate is reflecting the number of persons involved in crime, we know that the youth crime rate might be higher than the adult crime rate. But if it's 5 youth committing one crime, then it's not like youth are actually committing more crime than adults. It's just that youth are more likely to be involved in one crime together. So if one adult commits one crime, but 3 youth are involved in one single crime, well then they're responsible for an equal number of crimes. It's not 3 versus 1, it's 1 versus 1. Each event was just one crime, but 3 people were attached to the youth crime. So we might be overestimating the rate of youth offending compared to adult offending. So all I'm trying to say here is that maybe when we're looking at crime rates, we're actually overestimating the amount of crime that youth are responsible for. So once again, we know that youth crime is on the decline, but it might even be lower than what we actually measure.